During 2023 and 2024, I felt depressed for month after month. I had so low energy. I couldn't even play video games. Playing video games felt like a chore. Brushing teeth and showering felt so hard. And I felt so overwhelmed with life. My emotions were all over the place. Most of the time they were just negative, and it was such a shit time. With that, of course, my mental health plummeted. It was so low and my mental health was so bad. But there were two habits that helped me tremendously to improve my health. And today I will explain those two habits so you can also improve your mental health. The first habit that improved my mental health, that improved my mood and improved my overall life was reading. Now, to be honest, for most of my life I despised reading. I felt it was boring, it was like a chore, and I didn't really like it. The reason, of course, was because of school. During school, we were forced to read books we didn't even want to read. I can remember so many books that I despised reading. They were boring, they were overly complex, they were just written in a dumb way. They were all written in direct speech, which means they were written like a theater. And who likes to read some books? I didn't, but I was forced to read those books. And this was so shitty. Of course, I couldn't just skip the books, because if I skipped those books, I would fail on the test, and I would have shitty grades, and then I would fail the semester, or even worse, the complete year. So I was literally forced to read those shitty books that I didn't even want to read. Because of that, after school, I didn't want to read, because I associate reading with this chore, with this unpleasant feeling, with this forceful thing. Now, this thinking was stupid of me, because reading is amazing. Reading is so a good habit. And I wish I realized this sooner. But what I realized is, what is different from school, I can choose the books I want to read. If, let's say, I want to read a book about emotional intelligence, I can read it. And after 10 pages, if the book is shitty, I can just toss it away, and I don't need to force myself to read the entire book. Then maybe I want to read a book about philosophy, and this I read entirely because it's interesting and I want to read that. In school, this wasn't the case. We were forced to read the entire book. And now I can choose whatever I want to read. And this distinction, this change is essential to finally enjoy reading. With that, I finally enjoy reading again. Now I read so many books. I read books about emotional intelligence, about philosophy, about how to live life, about how to be focused and so on. I read a ton of books and they give me so much joy and they improve my mental health and my mood. And I will explain why. The first reason why reading is so good for me is when I was depressed, when I felt depressed, especially 2023 and 2024. What I did is I overstimulate myself 24/7. Of course, 2022, 2021, I did that also, but 2023 and 2024 more so, because I was out of school and I didn't really know what to do with my life. So instead of doing anything with my life, I just spent weeks just staring at the screen, just overstimulating myself, just binge watching Netflix, binge watching Disney Plus, watching anime, playing video games on end, watching so much short form content, YouTube shorts, TikTok and Instastories. I just bombarded my head with stimulation. And because of that, my mental health plummeted. That's why 2023 and 2024 were so shitty years, because I overstimulate myself. I was overwhelmed, my head was clustered with information, with emotion that it didn't need it, and because of that, my mental health plummeted and took a hit. So, I thought to myself, those habits, they are bad for me because I overstimulate myself. What would be a good habit that isn't overstimulating? So I thought to myself, and I came to the conclusion that I should replace all of those things with reading. Because reading is low stimulation. And if I replace things that are overstimulating and with that ruin my mental health with something that is low stimulating, with that instantly I would improve my mental health. So this was the first thing I did, and this was such a big change. I completely replaced everything that was overstimulating with reading. Because if I didn't replace it, if I just would quit it, if I'm being honest, I would just replace it with either even worse habits, or I would just fall back. Because I need to replace those things with something different. I just can't quit. Maybe there are people who can, I can't. I need to replace things with other things. So that's the first thing why I think reading is so good. Because it isn't stimulating, it's low stimulating. The second thing that kind of ties in with the first thing is, when I was overstimulating myself, I watched short form content and I scrolled on Insta and YouTube and TikTok for, let's say 4 to 6 hours every day, 4 to 6 hours with just scrolling on my phone. With that, I fucked up my focus, I fucked up my attention, I overstimulated and clustered my mind. But I fucked up my focus and my attention. And with this shattered focus, I needed something to heal that focus. And reading is the perfect antidote to do so. Because when you read a page, you need to focus for a few minutes. You need to fully focus. Because if you don't, you just read a paragraph and then you think, I didn't understand shit. And you need to read the same paragraph again. Or for me, at least, this is the case. But now, when I read, I improve my focus because I need to be focused for, let's say, a few minutes. And this restores my shattered focus I had from overstimulating myself for years. And because of this good focus, I'm better at almost anything. Because when I need to work, I can be focused and really go deep when I work. When I need to research for a video or for a subject, I can be there for hours and be fully focused on researching. Of course, when I need to read, I can read longer and more attentively. When I speak to people, instead of just listening shallowly with a shattered focus, I can fully listen attentively, and then I can answer almost instantly. Spontaneously, but instantly. And with that, I have so many better conversation, and my social skills improved and my cognitive function improved because my focus and my attention isn't fucked and my head isn't clustered. So this is also a big win for me, because when I have better social interaction and when I'm better at work and so on, I just feel better overall. And with that, my mental health is also better. Another thing that was or is very essential for me is when I felt depressed, 2023 and 2024, I did nothing with my life. Literally, I did nothing purposeful or meaningful with my life. Most of the time, I was just spending time on my phone, doing nothing. Because, like I said, even gaming felt hard. So what I then had, I had no progression in my life. I had zero growth in my life. And this was tremendous or tremendously bad for my life, because I need to feel good, or when I grow, I feel good. And when I don't have that, I have bad mental health. I don't know if it is the same case for others, but for me, I need to have growth in my life. If I don't grow the slightest bit, I feel shitty about myself. So when I read, I acquire knowledge, I learn something, because I read only non-fiction books. Why? I just like them more. But when I read those books, I always learn new things, I acquire knowledge. And with that, I have this sense of growing that I so need, so I have good mental health. So that's why reading is also so good for me, because I have this sense of growth. The last thing why reading is so good for my mental health, basically reading just flat out improves my mental health. I don't know why. I know there are scientific papers and studies that prove that we should read. You have just a flat out boost to your mental health. But when I read, and when I just sit in a comfortable chair and just can spend, let's say, 30 minutes or an hour just reading, my mood is elevated, my mental health feels so much better. I don't know, maybe it's because I can clear my head and can focus on something different, or why, but studies support this. I just know that my mental health and my mood just flat out has a boost when I read. So this is a fucking win in my view. Because when I replaced habits that literally fucked up my mental health with a habit that has proven to improve my mental health. So this is a huge win for my life. The second habit that improved my mental health tremendously was something I call nature activities. What I mean by nature activity is it's walking outside in nature, going on a run in nature, playing sports outside, or hiking, or just doing activities outside in nature where there is sunlight. Why this is so good for me is, first of all, it's just fun. Especially when I do and combine this with a social activity. Let's say I go running with a friend. I have a social aspect which is fun because it releases serotonin and we can have a good conversation, but also I'm in nature and I can have fun because I explore new things. So that's why this is so fun for me and it boosts my mood. Of course, when I play football with my friends, this is so fun. It's a team sport, so you have these social aspects, but also just hang out with friends there on the pitch. It's just a boost to my mental health, especially when there is sunny weather outside. But also when I go on a walk, I have this feeling of exploration, or I see something beautiful. When I go on a walk in the morning and then there is a sunrise, this beautiful reddish with a pinch of yellow and orange, it's extraordinary beautiful. It's so beautiful to see this sunrise. It's one of the most beautiful things you ever see in your entire life. And the same goes for sun settings. When I go walking in this hour, I have these beautiful things that just elevates my mood. Then of course, when I do something social, let's say I play sports, this gives me also fun, but it also gives me this social aspect that is so essential for good mental health. Regardless of what activity, it could be a walk with a friend, or it could be playing sports with friends. It could be hiking on a mountain with friends. Those things, or it could be even going on those things alone, but meeting new people and having a small chat with people. Those kind of interaction are social and they elevate my mood so much and they are fun and just boost my mental health. Another thing why nature activity is so good for me is the emphasis on activity. I like when I do something. Like I said, with reading, I need growth. And when I do activity, I have this sense of movement and progression in my life. This gives me a sense of achievement or a sense of growth, which I so need for a good mental health. Especially when I go running, I know that I improve my endurance. Or when I go hiking, I know that I improve my discipline to endure hardship or something like that. Or when I play sports, I know this is beneficial because it improves my overall health. So this is also a big factor for me why I like nature activities, because the active part is so essential for my life. Of course, there's also studies that show if you do fitness and if you have activity in your life that there is improved mood and mental health, but I just also experienced it firsthand. And the last thing why nature activity is so good for me is just it boosts my overall mental health just flat out. When I go into nature, when I walk, when I run into nature, and especially when I run this specific path where I have a little specific part where I go through a forest, this just elevates and boosts my mental health. I don't know why. Of course, there are scientific studies that prove that, but it's just so beautiful. When I run through the forest and when I see maybe a squirrel or some birds or some wildlife, it just boosts my mental health. It just gives me a flat out boost in mental health. But on top of that, it clears my head. And with that, it improves my cognitive function. When I had a busy day or when I'm just clustered in my mind and I go for a run, I go for a walk in nature, it clears my head, it clears my mind. And this is so a refreshing experience. It is weird because for me, running was hard for most of my life. I didn't enjoy running because my leg hurt, it was uncomfortable, and my endurance was shit. But when I started to really start slow with running, I'm talking running a pace that feels almost too slow for you, but you just focus on making the run as enjoyable for you as possible. This means you don't focus on how long you run or how fast you run, you just focus on just taking it all in. When I started to do running like this, sooner than later I enjoyed running. And then I realized why so many people like running, because it's so beautiful and it clears your mind and it just it's refreshing, especially after a long day of work, when you just can run for half an hour and you can just clear your mind and you can go refreshed to your bed. This is so amazing and it's just so good for my mental health. Those are the two mental health habits that help me tremendously to boost my mood, to boost my mental health, and with that boost my overall life. Reading and nature activities. If you struggle with mental health, I can help you. If you click the first link in the description, you can have access to me for free, with no strings attached, no upsell, nothing. You may think, why is this for free? The simple answer is, I want to become an expert in mental health. And to be more specific, I want to become an expert in helping other people improve and fix their mental health. This is my big goal, this is my purpose in life. But to do so, I need to have experience and I need to talk to as many people who have mental health problems so I can enhance my skill and so I can improve my skill of being more efficient with helping other people improve their mental health. So this is a win-win for you. I help you for free and I gain experience, so I enhance my skills so I can become an expert faster and more efficient. So if this sounds interesting, if you want to have someone who can listen to your mental health problem attentively and then give you tangible advice so you can actually make progress in that area, then click the first link in the description and I will see you there. On that note, I wish you a wonderful day, take care and then get after it.